Welcome back to the Current Electric High School Football State Championship Preview Show presented by Cannon and Duffy, getting you ready for the Wisconsin State High School Football Championships. Let's turn our attention over to Division 7 as Potosi-Cassville takes on Edgar. Potosi-Cassville, champion of the Six Rivers Conference, and defeated Kenosha St. Joe's Catholic 26-15 in the state semifinal to move into the finals. We're now joined by Steve Prestegard, editor for the Platteville Journal and play-by-play announcer for WGLR in Lancaster. Steve, how you doing?
Good. Looking forward to number 1 and number 2 and the defending state champ and a team that's never been there as a co-op team. There's all kinds of great storylines for this Division 7 game.
Hey, let's talk a little Potosi-Cassville, and that's what we have you on. Don't know a lot about them, but they've had an awfully good year. And talk a little bit about the journey they've been on.
Well, they're 13-0, so that tells you something right there. Playing in what people in this area, I think, justifiably believe is the most difficult Division 7 football conference in the state, the Six Rivers Conference. At the end of the season, 3 teams out of the Six Rivers was part of the top 10 in the WisSports.net Division 7 poll. So you go undefeated in the regular season, and the WIA somewhat inexplicably decides that you're not a number 1 seed and you're not a number 2 seed, you're a number 3 seed. So part of what happened was that they had to play the team that they had beaten the week before for the conference championship right away in the first round of the playoffs. And the 3 teams that they played in their bracket, which was Blackhawk Warren and Cochran Fountain City and then River Ridge, had a combined record going into their games of 25-5. And I'm not sure there's a lot of teams, maybe none in the state, that had that kind of rugged postseason to just get out of the sectional. But Potosi-Cassville managed to do that. And then last week they beat Kenosha St. Joseph 26-15 at Madison Memorial. And so here they are.
Well, and to have that kind of difficult run sets them up pretty nicely when they play a team like Edgar.
I would say it does, definitely. It's kind of nobody was happy with the seeding as things happened. But, they took on Cochran Fountain City after a 3-hour bus trip and beat them 55-0. They scored literally every time that they had the football. And Kenosha St. Joseph, they managed to beat on Friday, despite the fact that they literally ended up by the end of the game with half a dozen players out due to injuries, including 2 of their offensive linemen and 2 of the running backs. But they managed to get it done. And that's kind of been the theme all year, basically, is find a way to get things done. And so they're coming in, again, 13-0, and they were ranked number 1 this year.
Health-wise, how are they coming in? 10 o'clock kickoff today, right here on My 24. How are they health-wise going into today's game?
Well, the belief is that everybody will be ready to go. These are the sorts of injuries that you can't play the rest of the game, but X-rays were taken in some cases, and they all turned up negative. So apparently everybody is ready to go, at least as of earlier this week.
Hey, Steve, last question before we cut you loose. A 10 a.m. start is so different than what these kids are used to. From youth football, you would play 10 a.m. games. But, once you get to high school, you don't do that until you get to a state championship game like there is today. And I'm just wondering, the coaching staff, did they get their kids ready? Did they practice at 10 a.m. a little bit this week? School's different, and not much homework is being given out. And I'm wondering if they're ready for a 10 a.m. kick.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what their schedule is, except that I'm pretty positive they're just practicing at their usual times. The bigger issue is getting up to Madison Wednesday night and, making sure that everybody's in bed early and then gets up early. Obviously, the team that it's not going to probably affect is Edgar, because they've played in 14 state championship games, so they're pretty set as far as what they do. I don't know. I don't feel like it's going to be a huge factor, simply because if you're not ready to go for this, you don't have a shot anyway. So regardless, they play the game at midnight, I think, if they needed to play this game.
I agree with that. Steve, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. We are now joined by Tom King from Zaleski Sports. We're going to discuss the defending state champion, the Wildcats from Edgar, maybe one of the best football programs in the entire state of Wisconsin. They won the Merriwood Central Wisconsin Conference this fall. They edged out Boyceville 21-20 in their semifinal to get a chance to go for their 9th state championship. Hey, Tom, boy, this Edgar program is something else. They just keep rolling.
Yeah, it's interesting. Early in the year, I think some people thought that maybe they'd take a step back this year after graduating so many skilled position players and some of their best linemen. And then Stratford came in and beat them the second week of the season fairly easily. So a lot of people maybe thought that this was not the team to go back and defend that title. But since that loss to Stratford, they've ripped off 10 wins in a row, all of them, or almost all of them, blowout wins. And now they've found themselves right back there again. And Jerry Sins and his staff, once again, do a great job, get his team ready to go back and defend the title.
You know, there's something to be said about being the hunted, right? And when you put that Edgar uniform on, you know, I feel like they're up 7-0 before they play people because of all of the tradition and the state championships that they've won. And I think for somebody who's going to play them as a state championship, you've got to play really well that first quarter and understand that you belong in that game, and to be able to show Edgar that, look, this is not going to be one of these games that you're rolling over anybody. Do you feel the same way with that program?
Well, it's difficult for teams to do that too, because in the first quarter of games this year, Edgar's outscored their opponent 135-14, and they've outscored them 291-68 in first halves of games. Most of the games they've played in the regular season have been over by halftime. So yeah, it's tough for a team to come in and think that they're going to, blow out Edgar. Edgar's going to be there. The game against Boyceville was an oddity in that Boyceville probably should have won that game. Edgar was down late in the game, found themselves facing a second down and 30 after an intentional grounding penalty, somehow found a way to pick up the first down, march the ball down the field and score the touchdown, and got the extra point to win it by 1.
Yeah, things happen for a reason, right? But when teams are so used to winning, it's when you have them down, you've got to finish them, right? And a team like Edgar, when you give them that slight opening, it's similar to Catholic Memorial in our area, right? When you give them that one opening, they're used to being able to finish, and they make things happen down the stretch of games where other teams start playing not to lose, right? And I think that's what happens when you play a team like Edgar.
And one thing that Edgar's got, quarterback Tucker Strite, who stepped in for his brother who graduated last year, doesn't have the strongest throwing arm, but he has the ability to scramble and avoid pressure. And he did that in that final drive where he avoided a sack a couple of times and was able to get the pass away, and they picked up positive yardage. So that's one reason. They also have this three-pronged rushing attack that the teams don't know who. They don't have one person to key on with Maverick Butt and Will Hackle and Gavin Maurer. There's no one guy you can key on. Any one of them is able to bust it open. They all have huge yards per carry averages. And they're doing this after losing who was supposed to be their number one running back, Jay Saffelbeck, in the game against Stratford back in August, broke his leg, and he's been out all season.
Wow. Well, the teams just keep rolling when you have a program like that, and that coaching staff does a great job. Hey, Tom, thank you so much. On the other side of the break, we will discuss the Division VI matchup between Grantsburg and Lamira. This is the Current Electric High School Football State Championship Preview Show presented by Cannon and Dunphy, only on My 24.